ℕ𝕦𝕥𝕚𝕚𝕚 and ℕ𝕦𝕦𝕚𝕚. Prologue. In a world divided by deep chasms and dark forests, two beings were born under the signs of a story that would change the fate of both realms. ℕ𝕦𝕦𝕚, the prince of the goblins, was a being of light, with eyes as blue as the morning sky and a heart full of unearthly courage. Raised under the guidance of Queen ℕ𝕦𝕦𝕚, his father gone too early, he had learned that true power lies not in strength, but in wisdom, gentleness and devotion to what is right. The young elf was known for his skill in magic, but especially for his desire to understand the world beyond the walls of his world, the dark and mysterious forest of the ogres. Beyond the chasm, in the torn forest, stood ℕ𝕦𝕦𝕚, daughter of the stone beast clan, an ogre remarkable for her courage and strength. By the standards of her forest, she was beautiful, with a mane of pitch-black hair and green eyes, intense as a spring leaf. Raised among warriors, ℕ𝕦𝕦𝕚 knew how to fight, survive, and respect the harsh code of the ogres. But deep in her heart, hidden among the cuts and scars, was an unusual desire for an ogre, curiosity for the world of light, for the music and magic of the elves, and perhaps, without fully acknowledging it, a need for something other than battles and territories. Their destinies met for the first time on the enchanted bridge, an invisible bridge that appeared only when thoughts were pure and hearts sincere. When their gazes met, it was as if the universe itself had breathed a new beginning. To first glance, they were the perfect opposites. Brute force and grace, darkness and light, tradition and curiosity. And yet, in that moment, a spark passed between them, a timid feeling, almost impossible, but true. The prologue of this story is not about wars or crowns, but about the meeting of two hearts that did not yet know that they could change the world. It is about the courage to look beyond the walls imposed by their own worlds, and about the first beats of a forbidden but inevitable love. In the eyes of ℕ𝕦𝕦𝕚 and ℕ𝕦𝕦𝕚, the abyss no longer seemed a limit, but a challenge, and the enchanted bridge, a sign that sometimes destiny rises beyond fear, hatred and habit. Here begins their story. A young elf and an ogre girl, bound by a spark of courage and love, ready to face entire worlds for what they believed was right and beautiful. Chapter 1: Two Worlds Divided by the Abyss. The abyss between the two lands was more than a simple crack in the ground. It was a deep wound, a division between light and darkness, between wilderness and harmony. On one side lay the torn forest, the realm of the ogres, where giant trees, with cracked bark and knots as heavy as stones, grew piled high on top of each other. Over another, forming a kind of natural ceiling, dark and oppressive. The foliage was thick and thrown over the branches like an old, moldy blanket, and between them crept the steam of stale water and the old smoke of the fires lit by the ogres. The wind rarely managed to penetrate the labyrinth of trunks, and the rays of the sun, when they penetrated, were filtered by a dirty, oppressive green, which transformed the light into a dense fog. The forest was alive in its brutal way. The leaves crackled under invisible footsteps, and the shadows moved as if they had a will of their own. The sounds were always unclear, but threatening. A grove of branches broke. A guttural roar echoed from afar, and the yellowish eyes of the ogres appeared and disappeared among the foliage. Every corner of the forest was a potential danger. Every the root hid an opponent or a natural trap. The air was heavy, dense, almost suffocating, saturated with the smell of rotting earth, burnt moss and rotting resin. In this forest lived ogres, giant creatures, with skin rough like tree bark, moss on their shoulders, and their yellow eyes seemed to burn in the darkness, and their enormous jaws hid fangs that could tear apart any prey. Their massive bodies were supported by strong muscles, and their gait was accompanied of thick cracklings, like the thumps of hooves on the ground. Ogres did not live in ordinary houses or huts. Their dwellings were dug between huge roots or raised from massive tree trunks, reinforced with bones and stone, permanently smelling of smoke and blood. In contrast to this dark world, the enchanted land seemed detached from a dream of light. Beyond the abyss, bright green meadows stretched as far as the eye could see, and the trees were thin with white bark, which reflected the sun like small mirrors. Their leaves were fine, light, and when the wind passed, it bent gracefully, as if it were dancing. Flowers appeared in bright colors, sometimes iridescent, and the grass moved smoothly, carried by the warm breeze. Golden birds and crystal birds filled the sky with delicate songs, and the rivers shone like molten silver, reflecting the light in a subtle rainbow. Here lived the elves, delicate beings, with fine skin, shining wings and eyes clear as morning dew. They did not know the brutal pain of the dark forest. Their magic was healing, and every gesture was full of elegance and harmony. Their houses were built in the crowns of trees, suspended above the meadows, connected by thin crystal bridges. Each building was alive, part of nature, with walls of flowers, herbs and illuminated wood, which lit up and went out depending on the weather and the mood of the inhabitants. Their stables were nothing more than living greenhouses for small and fast horses, protected by leaves and flowers, fed with rare plants and magical fruits. Between these two worlds, the chasm was not just a physical space, but a symbol of division. Fear, hatred, and tension between two completely different civilizations. However, the magic of the enchanted bridge existed as a bridge invisible. It did not appear to everyone. Only those with pure thoughts, a pure soul, and true intentions could see it. The bridge was a thin thread of light and crystal, stretching across the abyss, shining faintly, almost invisibly, and trembling like a strip of gold in the wind. Those who saw it felt a strong calling, whether they wanted peace, or were approaching magic or their destiny. Anyone with dark or hateful thoughts saw it only as an invisible strip, impossible to cross. The air was different over each realm. In the torn forest, breathing became difficult, as if each breath pushed the dense air of rotten leaves. In the enchanted land, each inspiration brought a sensation of purification. The air was fragrant, light and clean, filling the lungs with energy and clarity. The sounds were equally different. In the dark forest, branches break, howls echo and footsteps echo in the darkness. In the land of light, the chirping of birds, the murmur of rivers and the wind in the leaves create a harmony that soothes you and makes you forget about the past. Although they were separated, the two worlds had a kind of subtle connection. The ogres felt the light from beyond like a strange smell, and the elves could feel the dark power of the torn forest like a cold shiver on their skin. The abyss was thus a physical and symbolic barrier, but also a mirror. What happened in one world had an echo, be it fear, desire, courage, or malice. The invisible bridge thus became the only way to meet between the worlds, but also a test. Only the pure in heart, with courageous intentions and untainted by hatred, could cross the chasm. A selfish thought, a desire for power, or revenge made it invisible, impossible to reach. The bridge was both a window and a test. If someone managed to reach the other side, they were in a state of purity and courage rare even in these two worlds. This separation between darkness and light was not only geographical, but also emotional and moral. Each realm had its own culture, its own rules, values, and fears. The ogres had learned to live by force, by fear, and by domination. The elves lived by care, harmony, and respect for nature. The broken forest was a realm of brutal survival. Any mistake could be fatal. The enchanted land was a realm of wisdom and patience. Each action had to be weighed and meditative. But even in this separation, magic was felt everywhere. In the torn forest, magic was dark, almost painful, pulsing in roots and bark, in moss and in the eyes of ogres. In the enchanted land, magic was bright, healing and subtle, visible in every crumb of dew, in every leaf that trembled at the touch of the wind. The abyss thus became a space of tension, mystery and possibility. What happened here could change the fate of both worlds. As the sun rose, the invisible bridge began to glow faintly, but only to those with a pure heart. This was the first calling, a bridge between two completely different worlds, a symbol of the fact that, however separated they may seem, light and darkness can communicate if one is willing to put aside one's fear and hatred. Thus begins the story. Two worlds separated, each with its own beauty and dangers, with strength and delicacy, with darkness and light. And between them, an invisible bridge, waiting to be discovered by someone pure enough to cross it. A bridge that would change the fate of both worlds and bring impossible encounters, but also conflicts that would shake the torn forest and the enchanted land.